Hello and welcome to Siddhartha Chapter 11, page 105. And this is our word that I love to say, the Om, and it goes along with right mindfulness. So, what is right mindfulness? Right mindfulness is the mental ability to see things as they are with a clear consciousness. I almost feel like it's that idea of being present, to really take in everything rather than rush through life, really take in everything that's around us, even things that could be negative, things that could be positive, really relishing staying in the present moment. I'm reflecting on those things now rather than wondering what we should have did, wondering what is going to happen. We really stay in the present. Right mindfulness helps us observe and control the way thoughts go. I should say our thoughts go, sorry. Four foundations of mindfulness are contemplation of the body, contemplation of feeling, contemplation of the state of mind, contemplation of phenomena, meaning considering truth or bringing insight into the fundamental principles of Buddhist teachings. So now we're getting into that upper level of what it's like to be a Buddha, that state of not superiority rather, but I guess serenity, peace, holiness, that idea of being again in peace with ourselves and who we are. So Siddhartha's journey. Now remember his son is left, so he's really hurting. The chapter starts with saying the wound smarted for a long time, so it means it has a lot of pain. So his pain is still strong. He still feels pain when thinking of his son and leaving. This is a part of his life that's really changed his perspective on things. His attitude towards people changes and understand their pains and worry. Page 106, he says they had become understandable, lovable, and even worthy of respect. There was a blind love of a mother for her child, the blind, foolish pride of a fond father for his son. So remember, way back in chapter 1, he found these people what do I want to say? Like he found them like disgusting and like worthy of his contempt. Later on in the book, he becomes associated with them when he is also like in the realm of the worldly life, like the money, the gambling, and all that. So he can understand them in that sense. Now he understands them from a different perspective, understands them from the fact of love and understanding. However, he still does say on page 106 that they lack the consciousness of the unity of life, that kind of underlying feeling of our purpose. And that's why one of the reasons why this aligns with right mindfulness, this chapter. So Siddhartha, the river, and samsara. So he again contemplates going to see his son. And along the way, the river speaks to him in a laughing manner. So I'm going to read that for you on page 107. It starts on one day, so once you get there. One day, when the wound was smarting terribly, Siddhartha rowed across the river, consumed by longing, and got out of the boat with the purpose of going to town to seek his son. The river flowed softly and gently. It was in the dry season, but its voice rang out strangely. Remember, the whole point of his journey on this part is to listen to the river and to learn from it. He's starting to get that way in this chapter. The river was laughing clearly and merrily at the old ferryman. Siddhartha stood still. He bent over the water in order to hear better. He saw his face reflected in the quietly moving water, and there was something in this reflection that reminded him of something he had forgotten. And when he reflected on it, he remembered. His face resembled that of another person, whom he had once known and loved and even feared. It resembled the face of his father, the Brahmin. So again, that idea of samsara, everything comes in a circle. He's again reminded of perhaps the pain that he gave his father when he left. How he remembered how once as a youth he had compelled his father to let him go and join the ascetics, how he had taken leave of him, how he had gone and never returned. Had not his father also suffered the same pain that he was now suffering for his son? Had not his father died long ago alone without having seen his son again? Did he not expect the same fate? Was it not a comedy, a strange and stupid thing, this repetition, this course of events in a fateful circle? The river laughed. That's how it was. So his life is a circle. How he treated his father, he's getting treated the same way. Think of the river being in a circle. It's always looking like water, yet it's always changing. So Vasudev and the river. So Siddhartha goes back and divulges what he has learned and felt to Vasudev. He, meaning Siddhartha, felt that the motionless listener was absorbing his confession as a tree absorbs rain. Remember, Vasudev is always a very good listener. Vasudev encourages him to listen to the river. Do you hear? Do you hear? And listen better. It's on page 110. Page 111, Siddhartha is able to finally hear the hovered over all the voices of the river. His wound was healing. His pain was dispersing. His self, meaning his self, his inner being, notice the capital letter, had merged into unity, the unity of all things. Think the river looks the same, it's all water, but it's always changing. Perhaps what this means, Siddhartha looks like Siddhartha, but he's always changing. So he learns a really good lesson in this chapter. So from this point, Siddhartha fights against destiny. It is when Siddhartha comes to this realization of self that Vasudeva leaves him. So these quotes are on page 111. I'll start, if you go to 111, I'm going to read a little bit. I want to go over some important quotes on this chapter. So page 111, I'm going to read the last few chapters of this chapter. Vasudeva's smile was radiant. It hovered brightly in all the wrinkles of his old face as the hovered over all the voices of the river. His smile was radiant as he looked at his friend, and now the same smile appeared on Siddhartha's face. His wound was healing. His pain was dispersing. His self had merged into unity. So as we see, Siddhartha is finding himself. He's becoming more united in who he is. From that hour, Siddhartha ceased to fight against his destiny. There shone in his face the serenity of knowledge. Remember, this is what he was always searching for that he could never get from teachers. Of one who is no longer confronted with conflicts of desires, who had found salvation. Remember, those desires is what he went through when he met Kamala and the merchant. Who had found salvation, who was in the harmony with the stream of events, with the stream of life, full of sympathy and compassion, surrendering himself to the stream, belonging to the unity of all things. As Vasudeva rose from the seat on the riverbank, when he looked in Siddhartha's eyes and saw the serenity of knowledge shining in them, he touched his shoulder gently in a kind, protective way, and said, I have waited for this hour, my friend. Now that it has arrived, let me go. I have been Vasudeva the ferryman for a long time. Now it is over. Farewell, hut, farewell, river, and farewell, Siddhartha. So Vasudeva was this point in his journey where he was to learn from, very much like his past teachers, but he was learning in a way that Vasudeva let him. Siddhartha did a lot of the searching on his own. He did a lot of the talking to Vasudeva, but didn't get a lot of input. So this is the one time in his life he's able to really get insight into who he was. He's not listening to teachers, and he's doing a lot of the talking and the seeking by himself. So last two quotes I want to go over from this chapter. Again, I waited for this hour, my friend. Now that it has arrived, let me go. I have been Vasudeva the ferryman for a long time. Now it is over. Farewell, hut. Farewell, river. Farewell, Siddhartha. He has learned what he needed to learn, so it's time for the ferryman to leave. As he leaves, Siddhartha watches as his steps are full of peace, his face glowing, his form full of light. So perhaps at this time, Vasudeva is enlightened. He has reached a point where he was able to pass on his knowledge to someone else. So how does this chapter connect to right mindfulness? Siddhartha has an awakening of self in this chapter. He becomes more aware of what he's feeling. He becomes more aware of what mentally affects him. He becomes aware of the phenomena of spirituality and the union of self with the universe. That's why the chapter is titled If you have any further questions about this chapter, there is a link in My Connect under chapter 11. So please put your questions there.